Well, it probably starts with the turnoff at 117.
When we drive up, our cats are quiet the whole time in the car until we get onto
Burnell Road.
the Burnell Road, and then they start to meow.
I think it's when I first see the lake, when we're driving up Brunel, and we just kind of first get that glimpse of the lake at the south end.
Seeing that stand of pines, it's like, okay, and I know I'm close, so
Right.
that's a great spot for me.
For me, it's really just once you get to the Bona Vista Road, you know you're here.
Just going down the tree-lined path, you know, the road in is so pretty.
Come down the road and you leave the South Portage Road. The laneway is narrow and you're just enveloped in the woodland, and it's another world coming down here.
My name's Carl Jaffrey. I came here first, I came to Bona Vista first in about the year 1940. My parents had been living in New Orleans, where I was born. My dad was teaching there for a while, came back to Canada, and a friend of my father's, the Reverend, Professor George Brown, encouraged my father, mother, and some friends of ours from New Orleans to rent the cottage that the Havens now own.
Sam and Marcia Havens, we live in Scottsdale, Arizona in the winter, and we cottage up here. I go back a long time as far as how I got here. My father was from Rochester, New York. My mother is from Niagara Falls, Ontario. They met at Ronville in 1932, got married in 1939 in Niagara Falls. My grandparents retired up here from Niagara Falls, had a home on 10 Mile Bay, Ronville Road. And then we started coming back in '78, stayed at Lumina for 5 weeks, bought this cottage. So this is our 32nd year.
This cottage has been in my family for probably about 33 years. And this is my partner, Dale. And we've been enjoying this cottage for a while now, since my father passed in 2005. Prior to that, my dad did basically come up here from probably early June to late September. And he was here for a number of years by himself, visiting with the community, but he certainly enjoyed it.
We've been escaping the Phoenix summers now for about 30 years. And we found Muskoka through friends of ours from Phoenix who invited us up. We spent a couple of summers here enjoying the environment, and one thing led to another. We ended up buying this property, which has worked out spectacularly well for us. We love it here.
Well, at first I wasn't very excited about coming here because it was a long way away. We had just met our friends, the Havens, who turned out to be our best friends now. Yeah. And I thought, gosh, 2 weeks. We got here, and it was, the next day I just thought, wow.
We have been coming to Lake of Bays for 9 summers. This is our 9th summer. We had a family cottage prior to this when our kids were growing up near Kingston, and we just loved the whole cottage thing with our kids growing up with their cousins on the lake and being, part of a big family there. And we used to go there regularly, but then as our families all got bigger and the cousins all got older, it got more complicated to arrange the whole family to get together at a given time. We discovered Lake of Bays through a friend. We came for a weekend and just kind of loved the whole ambiance and the social scene and the feel of the lake, and it just seemed like a good place to have a summer home.
My name is Peter Hadwin. I'm actually on record the official owner of this cottage. It was passed on from the larger family to the Hadwin family. I share it with my 2 other brothers' families, and so that's who I am. Okay. I've been coming here since I was, as early as I can remember.
I came as long ago as I can remember also. I can remember coming in, the main road was as close as we got to the cottage, so we all had to walk in through the bushes and across the whole of this area to get to the cottage.
And I'm Brian Lupton. My family's been around the area since I know when, years. My grandfather Arthur did a lot of work down around Bona Vista.
Indeed he did. Yeah.
I can remember coming down with a garden tractor or his farm tractor and a trailer around behind to either get wood or do something for somebody.
Yeah.
It was always the real thrill to hear him coming up the road on a Saturday because we knew we'd be able to take off with him.
This cottage was purchased by your father.
It was a real struggle for us. It was a depression, and it was very hard to dig out
$500.
$500 to own this, but we've never really regretted it.
There were no roads to Lake of Bays. Everything came from Huntsville, the boat from Huntsville to North Portage, and then the Portage Railroad took people to South Portage, and then there was a steamship there that took everybody around the lake.
This was one of the first developments. This part of the lake, this house was originally built in 1904.
The original settlers of Bona Vista tended to be Presbyterian ministers. And one result of that was the establishment of a little outdoor church, really just some benches down near the big dock.
There used to be benches, but they got so bad they just took them out. So people bring their own chairs, and there is a podium there.
But it was a very important aspect of the community when it was first established.
So this porch is exactly the same size as it was, and they used to have, when it was raining, they'd have Sunday services out here.
The wave of ministers was sort of replaced by a wave of university professors and school teachers, also people who had a long summer holiday. So actually getting out of the car and being here was the exciting time. And then there was a lot of work because you had a whole lot of stuff to carry. Sometimes when we were here from the Browns, my father arranged a sort of chute that went down to the dock so that you could put things on one end and with a rope pull it up to the top if it was a box of something. Just, you know, anything to stop having to carry things up hills too much. And gradually that all became easier and easier. We summered here in tents for, I think, 3 or 4 summers. That was quite a wonderful experience. It was very much getting back to nature. There was no electricity here for anybody at that point, so the fact that we were using coal oil lamps and things was just fine. And then in about 1949, we built the cottage that's there now, and it was extremely hard to get supplies at that time. It was shortly after the war. There was still a shortage of a number of things, and there was no road to bring things in. The man who did the building, Gottlieb Stone, got all the lumber that he thought he would need for the cottage on a sleigh that was owned by a farmer named Mr. Beswick at the corner of the Britannia Road and the old Bona Vista Road, and a team of horses, and he cleaned out a sort of a trail up the back, and the horses pulled this stuff up on the sleigh in the winter, and then in the spring Mr. Stone came and built something out of it. And in the original cottage, there's not a piece of wood bigger than a 2x6. So if he needed to make a beam, he would spike 3 2x6s together. But there it was a roof. It didn't leak like a tent did. So it was something we were very pleased to have, and we were in it for years. And since then, every time I've done anything to it, or we've done anything to it, adding electricity, adding plumbing, making an extension, whatever, I've always realized halfway through that it would have been better to tear it all down and start over again. But we haven't done that, and who knows, maybe we never will.
We did major reconstruction about 10 years ago, but we kept the footprint because the land was so spectacular. We've got this point with just a beautiful location, so we didn't want to disturb the land, and so we built up. We built a second story and upgraded it and added some outbuildings over the years.
The down floor is the original cottage.
Okay.
And everything has remained the same.
So this cottage is very much has remained the same as it always has been. It's up on piers because it's all bedrock. It's I would say a very simple structure, but a very solid structure.
Inside it, I don't think it's changed at all. There haven't been rooms moved, walls moved, other than a bit of the kitchen and the bathroom over there. But the main room has always been this big open space.
Yes.
And I was getting family objections to the new cottage as well. There are some bookcases in the old cottage that are made of planks that came from the old dock and have people's initials carved in them. And Eric said, well, you're not going to tear those down and throw them away, surely. Eric's very sentimental. Nora notices that the room that was her bedroom has two doors, the original door that is now blocked off by a little staircase going up to the loft, and another door. The original door really doesn't open onto anything but the side end of the staircase, but Nora thinks it's sort of cute and doesn't think we should tear that down. That was a feature that's worth saving. And so by the time I thought of all the features and ran out of money, it seemed a good time to just stop. The old Bona Vista road came as far as people named Clark, and it was such a terrible road that you tended to simply leave your car there for the duration of the time you were there, and we all used the steamers as the way that we really communicated.
Of course, they would have come up by train to Huntsville, and then there was a steamer that dropped people off at various docks, and there was a dock, a Bona Vista dock, just down from us. And that's where everyone was dropped off. That's where the supplies came on a regular basis with the steamers. Those steamers have are a big part of the history here.
The thing that I think probably pulled us together more than anything else were the steamboats.
And the mail was always received at that point, every morning at 11 o'clock. And that was how people kept their business.
That was an incredible way for people to get around. People really looked forward to the steamer arriving with their mail and their supplies.
Then you had to go and sort of make credit arrangements with the baker and the butcher and the grocery store and the dairy, because they were going to be sending you stuff out on the steamer all summer, and that was done on a sort of charge account basis, so they wanted to know who they were charging this stuff to and who you were.
To be getting a road into the community was what kept it together.
The South Portage Road was built in, I think, the early 50s, and that just changed everything. That's really when electricity came through. The old Bona Vista Road became almost abandoned.
There used to be a walking path along the front of Bona Vista from one end to the other. So, and that was because you had to be able to connect to that big wharf that was where the steamers came in, 3 or 4 cottages down, so that they needed access.
That path was how you got back and forth all the time.
The community was founded in many ways on the path because people would walk by and have conversations and so on.
The lots were all laid out subject to a road allowance that was supposed to be 66 feet back from the water's edge, and that was because there were provincial regulations that said that had to be left as a road allowance. So really the path was following this public road allowance that anybody could walk over.
There used to be a regatta at Point Ideal. It sort of changed locations, and there was one at the main dock there.
That was a
regatta,
big,
right?
that was a big,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Which
see
involved a much wider group, like
right.
And there's some ribbons in here that date back to the 1950s.
Yeah.
And they're formally printed ribbons, so it's clearly there was a lot of effort put into it. So the regattas were sometimes very formal affairs that would end up with a big bonfire celebration at the end, and so on. And events like canoeing races and so on.
What it means to have something like this in the family. Families, I think, over much of Lake of Bays, but certainly in Bona Vista, have tended to be the owners of a cottage and the users of a cottage through a number of generations, and it often is the most stable, the most consistent place called home that anybody has.
It's been a constant in my life, I guess, for 33 years. So as you go through various changes and going through high school, university, and beyond that, this has always been here, so it's a real pleasure to actually have it and use it as my own place now.
I grew up here. I was here when I was a month old. I have my roots here more than I do in Arizona.
It tended to be, for kids, a time of tremendous freedom. Parents didn't supervise kids the way they do now.
Tons of freedom, yeah. We just, we're outside all day. You'd spend your whole day outside, and by the time the evening came, you were just so tired. You'd just be sitting in the room there, trying to stay awake, playing card games and things like that. But eventually, you'd be just so tired, you'd just go to sleep and lights out. Yeah.
And the kids all came into the cottage, and the owners were here, and they just kind of plunked down on this big leather sectional couch, and they just kind of said, "This really feels good. It really feels right." It just felt like it felt right to them.
I remember your mother used to play a lot of classical music early in the morning,
Yes.
and that's what we would wake up with.
That's right.
Do you recall that, Mom? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we were lucky. I mean, we didn't grow up with families that owned cottages. I mean, we just bought this place. We're the first cottage owners in our family, so we were lucky to be able to get this place and be able to hold on to it.
My favorite thing about the cottage is all the cousins. Like my dad's twin brother has 7 kids. Everyone just meets here. It connects. That's
It's fun when they come up with, because now we have grandchildren that come up.
Yeah, now the grandkids come.
And we've got a sandy beach, so for little kids it's just fantastic.
All the kids were roughly the same age. And so there's this massive pack of kids moving from one cottage to another, playing games in the woods, going on hikes up to Brown's Rock.
We all had little boats and little outboards, and we poked around in those. We went swimming off the big dock.
well, everything I want is here, like swimming, fishing, sleeping, food.
Very nice reply.
I think that's one of the best things up here. There are so many multi-generation families.
I'm sure there's a sense that both of them have that the cottage is more home than anywhere else that they know. When my first wife and I separated, one of the things that we agreed was that she would get to use the cottage for at least 4 weeks every summer. And that was 30 years ago, and she's been using it 4 weeks every summer ever since. The cottage is now legally owned by Nora and Eric. They're going to be here together toward the civic holiday weekend, and I think their mother is going to come up for a little while, and so am I. So it's a place where people continue to meet together as a family, even families that have been fractured in some ways. Some of the girls from the Arnott cottage and what we thought of as the Vic Robert cottage, the one next to the dock, ran bake sales and otherwise raised money to get enough money to buy the diving tower.
It was in 2 parts, and there was an ordinary one that was about that high, and then another one above it that rested on that, which was for the virtuoso, and it was
But you know,
much longer. For some feet first, for some
yes,
the
well,
opposite,
yeah,
depending
that's
on
right.
which
So
way you went in.
That's right. Yeah. So. Everybody has memories that they build in the place.
I think just sitting out at dusk and watching the lake change colors and listening to the birds and everything.
We come up in the winter as well. It's actually very peaceful in the winter.
And where can you go to, get in a boat to play golf on an island, or get in your boat to go play tennis?
My father passed away he passed away 2 years ago, and he came up. I believe he came up knowing that he was close to passing, and he wanted to spend his time up here.
I think that's really a good word. Tranquility is probably right, yeah. It's, you can't beat nature. You can't beat what just be enveloped by it. I mean, it's, everybody loves it here. The kids love it here and grandkids, so it's been great.
We had our honeymoon up here in 1964 though, so that was really special.
I knew that my mother had been proposed to in a canoe by my father in the place, so I mean I grew up knowing that. And then I started building, I guess you could say, started building my own memories.
It's a great area, and I've really enjoyed being here, and having the opportunity to sit in this fantastic veranda and listen to the birds and hear the water lapping at the shore.
We love the lake. I think there's something about being at the lake. It's magic. It just kind of, it's peaceful.
You sit down and you look at the lake, and then you start, then you're just saying to yourself, wow, a great day awaits.